All right, this lesson is on the slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines, and we're also going to talk about horizontal and vertical lines. So when it comes to parallel lines have to have the exact same slope. Because they go up or down at exactly the same rate, you can see that they have to have the exact same slope. Okay. Perpendicular lines, since they form 90 degrees, they have to have exactly opposite slopes. So opposite meaning the opposite sign, if one's positive, one's negative, and reciprocal meaning the reciprocal of the fraction. Okay. So for example, if your slope is 1/2, the opposite reciprocal of that would be negative 2/1. Okay, those are opposite reciprocals of each other. Horizontal lines always have a slope of 0, meaning they won't have an x coordinate in their equation. And vertical lines, the slope does not exist, so they will not have a y in their equations. If you're looking for the slope in an equation, make sure that you have the equation in a form that you can find the slope of. Okay, so for example, y equals 3x plus 4. That we know the slope is the number next to the x, so it would be 3/1. But if there was, let's say, a 2 in front of the y, then the slope would not be 3/1. You would have to divide by the 2 first, and then the slope would be 3/2. Okay, so just make sure that you have it in a form that you can get the slope from before you get too carried away. We're going to try some examples. This example, find the relationship between the lines. So here's a line that contains the 0.46 and -1,5. So to find the slope, remember we do y minus y over x minus x. So let me grab the writing tool here. So we would, you can either do 6 minus 5 or 5 minus 6, that doesn't matter. But then let's do 4 minus -1, because you just have to go the same way. So if you do 6 minus 5 on the top, you have to do 4 minus -1 on the bottom. So we would get 1, and then the two negatives would go together to make a positive, so that'd be 4 plus 1, so the slope of that one would be 1/5. Then we'll do this line that contains these 2 points. So this one we'll do 7 minus 12 on top and 1 minus 0 on the bottom, which gives us -5 over +1. Okay, so now we look at those and we look at the two slopes and notice that one is positive, one is negative, and the fractions are reciprocals. So we would say that those two lines are perpendicular because they have opposite reciprocal slopes. Another kind of problem you might see is one where I give you the equation of a line and then ask you to write the equation or to find the slope of a line that is parallel or perpendicular. So going back to what I was saying before, you need to get the y by itself. You need to get the equation in a form where you can pull out the slope. Okay, so if that's my equation, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the x over to the other side by doing the opposite. So I'm going to add 2x to both sides. Okay, so I'd be left with 4y on this side of the equal sign. And then most teachers would prefer you to put the x in front. It really doesn't matter, but slope-intercept form would say that you'd put the 2x over there and then just the +10 would just ride along. They're not like terms, so you can't put them together, but it doesn't matter what order you put them in. And then y's not quite alone yet, so we still have to divide by 4 to get the y all by itself. So our final, our equation in slope-intercept form, 2/4 would be 1/2 x, and then 10/4 would be 5 over 2 or 2.5 if you want to write it as a decimal, it doesn't matter. But now that our y is by itself, we can take out the slope. Okay, we know that the slope of this line is 1/2. The question is, what is the slope of a line that is perpendicular to this one? Okay, so perpendicular, remember that's the symbol for perpendicular, would be the opposite and the reciprocal of this, so it would be negative 2 over 1. And then the second question says, what if your line is parallel to this one? If your line is parallel, that's the symbol for parallel, then your slope would be exactly the same, so it would stay 1 over 2. The third kind of problem you're going to get is to write the equation that is either parallel or perpendicular to a line that's given to you going through a specific point. Okay, for that one we're going to use the other form of the equation. So we're going to use the point slope form, so the y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1 equation. The first thing we have to do is figure out what the slope of this line is. Our y is already alone, so we can just look at whatever values next to the x. Okay, so the slope of this line is 1 over 5. Now we're specifically looking for the line that's perpendicular to that, so we have to find the opposite reciprocal of that. So the opposite reciprocal would be negative 5 over 1. So our slope will be negative 5 over 1, and then it's going to go through the point 4, 3. So we're going to use the y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. That's the point slope form. And we will simply put the negative 5 over 1 in for our slope. We'll put the 4 in for our x1 and the 3 in for our y1. So it'll be y minus 3 equals negative 5 or negative 5 over 1. You can leave it as a fraction or not. And then x minus 4. And it's okay to leave it like that. That's an appropriate way to leave your equation. Okay. So that is the lesson on equations of parallel and perpendicular lines.